All right. We are live. Let's see. You got people coming in. Perfect. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Here at CompanyCam, we've got a good one today. We're going to be talking all things documentation, and I'm joined by Chad Huber with CasaKeepers. Chad, how's it going today?
I'm doing well. Michael. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Some of the best webinars we do are the ones that, we maybe get into the weeds on some of the things, and where we're, focusing on documentation today. I think there's some weeds we could maybe get into and discuss. So with that, Chad, why don't you give us just the high level of kind of your background, CasaKeepers, how that came about. We'll dive into then the high level of the documentation topic, and then we'll get into some nitty-gritty here.
Perfect. Well, we started CasaKeepers about 8 years ago. We're in the hill country outside of San Antonio, Texas, so about 45 minutes outside of San Antonio. And we started it after my wife and I had been in the mission field for a few years. We'd done some construction before we left and some property investing. We left to go serve in the mission field and came back to Texas and decided that we wanted to do something different. And so we started with a lot of vacation home and second home management, small projects for non-resident owners. And as 2016, 2017 geared up, we saw the construction side really taking off. So have been heavily leaning into that construction GC field in the remodeling and design world ever since probably 2018 was when we made the hard switch. But we're really techie, so we're kind of a nerdy culture. We like our apps, we like our phones, we like our CompanyCam, we like our documentation. So we try to be nerds who also wear tool belts.
I love it. I love it. So we've got the perfect guest. So shout out to Christian in the background for reaching out to Chad and getting you on for this. But we're talking documentation today. At the high level, it's interesting that I talk to contractors in all different trades all day, every day. And at the end of the day, you can kind of boil down documentation to the same core reasons. All contractors are documenting for kind of the same set of core reasons. It looks different by trade, but everybody's doing it for the same few reasons, and at the high level, it's, I want to be able to prove what was there when I got there. I want to be able to show what we did or didn't do while we were there. And I want to be able to show what it was like when we got done. And, we're taking pictures, we're taking videos, we're taking notes. We're not taking those for the now. We're taking those for some time in the future. That time may be 5 minutes from now when Chad's in the office and he's looking at what's going on, or it might be 5 years from now when we need to prove, hey, we did or we didn't do this damage. For you guys, Chad, at the high level, what does documentation entail, or what does it look like at CasaKeepers?
So one of the things you teed up really well is it rarely makes sense to take the time to document something in the moment. It means that in order to be documenting in the moment, it has to be part of a playbook, a standard operating procedure. It's just part of the culture of things that we do, because it's really easy. I'll give you a recent example of where this made sense for us. Is we had a flooring product that we installed about 18 months ago that is giving our client problems. And so it's an LVT flooring, it's buckling, it's created issues. It was fine when we installed it. And so by going through, we have a culture of documenting when the material arrives, who picked it up, what project it's for, when did it get delivered to the site, where did it go on the site, and then the days of it being installed. And so what that enabled us to do was to go back to the manufacturer and say, we received it on this day, it was acclimated on this day, it was installed in this manner. These are the ways we didn't bind it under the baseboard. All of those things that don't make sense the day that we're taking photos, but it sure did make sense as we make a warranty claim. And we're not out tens of thousands of dollars to pull out a few thousand square feet of flooring. So we keep that at top of our mind, that it rarely makes sense today, but it definitely makes sense when we need to mount a towel bar in a location that wasn't planned, and we need to remember what was in that wall behind that sheetrock. So we use that kind of documentation every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I alluded to, your story or your example there, is specific to you. Like if I'm a roofing contractor, I'm saying to myself, well, we're not installing flooring, but I promise you at some point in time in your roofing career, you're going to run into, a shingle that doesn't adhere correctly, or it has some manufacturer defect or whatever it may be. And having that story that you can work backwards and say, okay, let's see if we can figure this out, is super valuable. You kind of answered this, but as far as documentation goes with you guys, take me kind of through when and where or who is doing the documenting. Because I think a lot of times, contractors are thinking like, we need to have our sales guy and do documentation, and then maybe at the end we have somebody go and do a final walkthrough and document, or sometimes it's like my production crew does it. For you guys, and I assume that it kind of goes throughout, just from hearing your answer there of how you handled the flooring from the day it got delivered through installation. Who is documenting in your company?
So yeah, you answered everybody. So I'll tell you the workflow, and this is both on the CompanyCam podcast and a free commercial I give to anyone who asks about CompanyCam. But the way that it works for us is when we schedule an appointment, so somebody goes to our website and they submit a request. Most of our leads come into our website, so they submit a request for a consultation. And when that comes through to our CRM, which is JobTread, which you guys just implemented with, thanks for that. The first thing that we'll do when we reach back out to them is grab a couple of screenshots overhead of their location, front of their house from Google Maps, and drop that into a CompanyCam folder, so that first we know where we're working, what the house is going to look like. When we've gone out to the home, it's up to the project consultant who goes out, or myself, to take a photo of the front of the house when we're there and then document our visit. So if we're a remodeling company. So if we're talking about remodeling a kitchen or adding a mother-in-law suite, after our introductions, the first thing we tell them is that we're going to be taking photos of the process, and we're going to be documenting this, because as salespeople, we don't like to be very salesy, but as the people-oriented side of our business, it's really easy to say you're going to remember, and you remember what the kitchen looked like, and you remember what the bathroom looked like, and we don't. We're busy talking. And so by taking videos and our photos inside of CompanyCam, I don't have to remember those things. I don't have to depend on my brain power. So we keep that in CompanyCam. Once we leave, we have a checklist of things that we need to know. How big the room is. Can you stay connected? Sorry, do you hear a noise in the background?
Yeah, it just popped in there. Like,
yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what that is. Technology, gotta love it some days. Anyway, so we use those. Once we get back in, we'll take all of our task lists and our photos, and that is kind of the sales package to begin that agreement with the client. So we're documented. I mean, our entire visit is going to be documented. We get back in, our designer begins making choices with the client. And as we're making design choices, we're dropping those idea photos inside of our CompanyCam, so that we're picking tile ideas and cabinet ideas. Those live in the project timeline of our introduction to this person. So their entire project, from the first time we've heard their name all the way through the design phase, is in CompanyCam. And then once we start on site, so we have a contract, we do that in JobTread there. We have a contract for work. Then once we begin from our pre-construction meeting, every employee is responsible for 8 photos a day, taken at whatever the progress is of that job that day. So they could be boring photos of demo. They could be photos of where the lockbox is, client dogs. We'll put a photo in there of the client's dog, and then somebody will tag it with the dog's name. So if they have 3 dogs, the next person who's there can know what dog is what, or what child is what. And then every single day, document at least 8 photos by every single team member. So we have some projects that are, have 1,000 or 2,000 photos start to finish. Every product that is delivered, every sub trade that's on the site, it's all shown in photos or videos.
I love it. I'm going to assume we don't have any of these people joining us right now live, because we're all joining. We want to learn more. We want to be better. But I'm going to kind of play that grumpy old contractor here. And the line that I would be hearing is, Chad, that's great. You sound like a unicorn of a company. Like my guys aren't going to do this. Like I'm not going to get my guys to do 8 pictures a day, or I'm not going to get them to, do all of these things that you're asking. From your perspective, and I'm guessing it's a lot to do with mindset and culture, those kind of things. How difficult was it to get this to be to get the buy-in? And do you have any tips or tricks that you guys kind of utilize throughout the, process of getting better? And I'm sure it's an evolving process as well. I'm guessing you've got some that are better than others at getting their 8 photos, or taking pictures of the dog on site. So talk a little bit about that. How did you get that mindset, and how did you get the buy-in from your team?
So buy-in, I think, goes back to culture. We just create a culture where the things that are important to us, when I interview someone, I take that back. When I will kind of express it when we do an interview, but certainly when we do their first day onboarding. So I have a new carpenter who's been out on his own, hadn't been answering to anybody for hours, or, project photos or any of those things. We're kind of entrepreneurial. So we tend to bring in a lot of solopreneurs who've been, kind of wearing all the hats, right? And so one of the ways that I explain it is I'll pick a project for us inside of CompanyCam that has 1,200 photos. And I'll walk them through why it makes sense to document it from the beginning. So we use their own experience when they had a client who halfway into the tile job, they thought that the tile was going to run a different direction. Well, did you have a photo where you could show them where the niche tile ran and how it would look? No, because that would have been right there. Do you have a photo of your demo plan so that when you found rot in that wall, that you could document where it was and how much it was? No, we didn't have that. How much money do you lose because you can't remember if you were the one that routed the vent in the attic or if it was your subtrade, and now it's condensating and dripping in their bathroom, like over and over. So you walk through a whole project of every single photo, every part of a construction puzzle being documented. It actually saves us time. It doesn't cost time. And so once I kind of get them to understand that it's not today. You can't look at today. We got to look at 18 months from now when the clients tell me their floor is buckling. And then the second thing that I tell them is, what we do is hard. There are fewer and fewer tool-wearing carpenters out there in the world. So if I'm telling you that I want to pay you to stand there for 15 minutes and take photos, it should be the easiest thing you're paid to do all day. Enjoy.
Yes.
Take a break. You're on the clock. Take those photos, upload them, think I'm an idiot, and move along.
Absolutely. And I think too, I love that last line, because as much as an owner of a contracting business, you want to say, yes, we need to be documenting. We need to be painting the picture. We need to be able to tell the story 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 18 months from now. You are in a fast-paced world as well. And I think sometimes that, we can give conflicting messages of, hey, you got to document, you got to paint the picture. But then it's also like, Chad, I need you on a roof tomorrow. We need to be getting another re-roof done. And so I think as an owner, sometimes you've got to step back and you've got to say, okay, hey, I know how important it is to document. I've got to instill that in my team. And you have to be a believer in it as well. Like if there's nothing else, you need documentation, you've got to be kind of the one leading the charge, in my opinion. Let's kind of take that. So now you've got that buy-in. You guys are doing it. How, as a business, can I take that from, because it is very CYA, a lot of documentation is a CYA, preventative, but how can I flip that into revenue drivers of, how can I maybe leverage this great documentation in my marketing? And I've got some ideas both for marketing and sales, which are, the 2 revenue drivers that we would be talking about, like getting leads in and closing leads once we get them in. How are you guys leveraging your documentation to, drive revenue?
My favorite one is, let's say we're in a competition in a client's mind with a couple of other general contractors who present a professional face. So we're not racing to the bottom price wise, to invest in things like people taking photos and making sure they have decent phones. And that's part of it too. We've actually bought phones for some of our team members because I'd rather have a Pixel 7 photo or an iPhone photo than the throwaway phone from, Metro PCS. That's part of our ethos is to do things well. So, we want to make sure the photos are good. So when we have lots of good photos and I'm in front of Mrs. Customer, and I have my iPad out, and they're curious as to how many kitchens we've done. And I open up CompanyCam and I go, well, let me see kitchen. Scroll, scroll, scroll. That was a kitchen. Here's some photos. Back. Scroll, scroll. More. I mean, we've been using CompanyCam for documentation for I think 4 years now, something like that. And so dozens of each type of project, hundreds of projects in total, thousands and tens of thousands of photos. And for the sales side, when a client sees the depth and breadth of that documentation and their amygdala gets to calm down and they go, oh, this is not your first rodeo. You're not figuring this out at my house. And once they get through that, in my market, nobody else is doing that. And so having all of those photos all through, all of those project stages through all of those years means that next client can go, you are the expert in the room. I see it. You have all these photos. These aren't just fake testimonials that you can post on your website. These are real people's houses. And it also helps us. One of the benefits to having that documentation is I share with them that's a siloed place for your documentation. They're not living on my phone. They're not living on trade partner's phone. They're not living on an employee's phone. This is yours, and we bought it for you. And so this box of photos, this album for your project is yours between us. And so we share those with them. About half of our projects, we share the link to the gallery so they can watch the progress and don't have to peek in. I tell fellow remodelers that whether you know it or not, the first thing a client does when your team leaves for the day is they go walk through your job site and either break something or find errors or things they don't understand. And so you can avoid that by providing them a link so that they don't have to walk into an active job site, tear down your dust protection and wonder what's going on, because they can see what's going on every day in real time.
I love that. I want to get into that even in a little more detail. When you're talking about though, hey, here's some kitchens we've done. I just want to give a shout out. This isn't a CompanyCam commercial by any means, but I do want, if you are using CompanyCam, the label feature that we have is a great way to not just get kitchens, but maybe find the 10, 15, 20 kitchens that, maybe got some upgrades or were done really, really well. And to be able to say, oh, you're looking for kitchens, filter by that label of kitchen. And now I'm scrolling through 15, 20, and I'm able to show here's some of our, best ones, maybe some of the upgrades that we want to try to push into this next consultation, those kind of things. So that's just a feature that just popped into my head when you're saying that. I was like, if you guys aren't using labels, Chad, your company, or just anybody watching, labels are a great way to, kind of filter down what's going on in your view, especially if you're doing, in your case, remodeling, where you've probably got bathrooms and kitchens and living rooms and sunrooms and you name it. It's like, okay, now I just want to see the kitchens. The second piece that I want to dig into quite a bit on is you're talking about that the timeline link. And I don't want to just focus on the timeline link, but when you're thinking about it, you're like, okay, hey, there's three of us. We're all professional, remodelers. We're all running quality businesses. What do we do at that initial consultation that's going to differentiate ourselves from the other two people in the room? And the one thing it doesn't matter the trade, your materials are all commodities. Everybody can get Owens Corning shingles. Everybody can get whatever type of flooring you're putting in. That it's a commodity. And so you've got to be thinking what can we do as a business to differentiate ourselves? And you mentioned the timeline link. I think that's a very important one, where it's, you're sitting at the table and that should be part of your sales process. Hey, one of the things we love to do is we love to have transparency with, our clients. We do provide this link for all of our clients that they're able to see progress, blah, blah, blah. The other one, and you mentioned checklist. Do you have any lists or checklists or things that you do? Doesn't have to be in CompanyCam. It could be in CompanyCam that you utilize in the sales process to be able to say, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, we did this initial walkthrough and inspection. We do a 15-point inspection to make sure that we're not missing anything, that we see everything. But then we do daily checklists, or we do the CasaKeepers clean pledge at the end of every job to make sure that we leave your property as clean or better than it was when we got there. Do you have anything like that you leverage in your sales pitch?
We do. So we certainly do leverage the ability for the client to be in that photo stream, in the gallery and see things. And the nice thing is, they can ask questions in there. They can share a photo. We found it's really cool. They screenshot it and send it to cousin Ethel to show her, their kitchen progress when it's down to the studs. And they just enjoy being a part of that process. So we certainly sell that. One of the things that we use as a differentiating factor is, first of all, we're high communication. So that's in the contracting world, for those people out there, I don't care what you do for a living, answer your dang phone and reply to emails. Your gross will go up by 30%. Like just talk to people. We get so siloed into, I'm busy and I can't get on the phone. So we definitely, that's an easy thing to sell against, is people who don't return phone calls and reply to emails. One of the things that we start at the very beginning is we call ourselves a zero punch list company. And so that means I refuse to accept the fact that a non-professional can come into any of our projects and punch list us. So we do our own quality control. We have a form that we call a wrap-up walk with a client. So we identify what's remaining. We have a form that identifies these are the 7 things that are still in process, or maybe there was a defect that we're correcting, or the glass showed up wrong, or whatever. And so our project lead will walk through the client and with the client and hand them this form that we've been working on that says these are the 7 things that are remaining to be completed. At that point, do you have anything that's not on this list? And so as we've done our own QC, 9 times out of 10, they don't. They don't go through and blue tape our projects. So we keep a high level of QC along for our work. That's a selling point for us. And then between the two, so inside and outside of CompanyCam, so we use our CompanyCam gallery, and then we use JobTread as a client landing page. And I know Buildertrend has one of these, and I think BuildBook has one where the client can click into their portal and have conversations, ask questions, see what's going on. And that daily involvement, as much as they want to. So it's an invitation to communicate, but it's not a forced thing. Some folks don't want to. They want to write the check. They want you to take care of the work, and they just want to be done with it. And other folks want to have a conversation. So we keep those going. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does beautifully. And two things I want to grab onto. I'll grab onto that conversation ability that you have. I don't have data on this, but I would bet, being a homeowner myself, that by presenting that ability in the front end helps sell jobs. I would almost guarantee that it gives that peace of mind. It sounds like a great thing. I can communicate whenever I want with Chad. It probably doesn't get used all that often. So on the front end, when we're pitching it, it's like, oh, this sounds like the greatest thing ever. I can communicate whenever I need to with my contractor.
Right.
Helps you close me as a client. And then I probably don't use it all that often. And it's one of those things where the inverse of that is, if you just didn't answer one question I have, now I'm going to Google and it's my CasaKeepers, they don't respond to anything. They're not available. You can't get in contact with them, but whatever it is. And it might have just been one question that they weren't able to get answered. And so I think that it's such a proactive approach to that communication gap, and hey, we don't have a communication gap. We have all of these ways that you as our client can communicate with us. gives them peace of mind on the front end, and then prevents a whole bunch of stuff on the, as the job progresses. So I love that.
Your prognostication is 100% correct. So folks do not use it to the point where you would think that they would. They really don't. Now, the ones who do, we tease. So everybody who's in contracting knows there are two professions that you don't want to do business with: engineers and either pilots or lawyers, right? Like there's the three, but engineers is always one, and pilots or lawyers, maybe doctors. You could say there's the four. That's the quad professions that are paid. We love those people. Like, we love them. I'll take every engineer in our region, because all they want is to know that their questions are going to be answered by a professional. When you tell them that we take photos every day, we take documentation and measurements every day, you're able to contact us all the time. Those people are the ones who, when they do want to ask a question, they want it answered. Number one, they want it answered, but they're not going to ask another one for 2 weeks. They're not going to blow up your phone, and they might if you don't answer. If you ghost them, they're not going to answer. But if you take, give them a proactive page to ask their questions, they're going to be fantastic clients. And I've also found, speaking of time, if you're on a site and you're a project lead, and the client comes to you at 3:00 in the afternoon with a question that they've been stewing on all day, they've already had this conversation in their head about how there's going to be pushback and there's going to be difficulty. Nobody likes confrontation, right? So even if they're not bringing forth anything that's a real issue, there's no argument. We're not crossways. People have these conversations in their head. Well, what we found is they, at 11:11 at night, the night before, when they think about it, they go to our site, they type in their question. It has no interpersonal dynamic. Nobody's got tools on, nobody has headphones in. Like, it's just them in front of their computer. They ask the question. First thing in the morning, our lead carpenter on that project will check their feed. They'll answer the client's question. The client says, "Oh, well, thank you." And the whole day of work goes without anybody needing to feel like there's been a difficult situation. And it just avoids any of that weirdness, and everybody just gets to get their job done.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give another example of this, different trade, but we talked before we went live about the hail that you guys have gotten down in Texas early in the spring, and it's been a very active, storm season across the country. And whether it was a storm implicated roof or not, if I'm going to do an inspection on a roof, that same thing can be happening in the 10, 15, 30, 60 minutes that I'm inspecting the roof in the client's brain while they're waiting down, on the porch, in the living room, wherever it is. They're almost playing over the scenario of Chad's going to come down from the ladder. He's going to tell me I need to replace my roof, and I have to push back because he's trying to sell me something. I can use that timeline link. Say, "Hey, Chad, I'm gonna go up, do the inspection here. Here's a link. You're gonna be able to follow along. You're gonna see the pictures. I can annotate those pictures. You're gonna see the videos." So now you can paint that picture almost, if a doctor shows you the X-ray, they say, "See right there, that's broken. We've got to get that fixed." Same concept. I'm up on the roof. I'm taking a video. I'm taking some photos. I'm marking them up. Now I'm getting down, and instead of that homeowner having time to figure out how they're gonna, push back and say, "I don't need to replace my roof," it's like, "All right, Chad, I see we got some problems up there. You're the expert. What is the solution?" And just that ability to flip the script. And the same thing, it's like they ask the question at 11:11 at night and gets answered first thing in the morning, and they're like, "Yeah, all right, perfect. On with the day." And so that proactive approach and just being able to almost flip the script of conversation is so valuable for a good experience, whether it be in the sales process and the production process, post-production, whatever it is. Yeah, jump in.
Can I talk? So the flipping the script thing, here's one of my favorite outcomes of allowing clients to see a gallery and a daily progress is I could probably count on two hands in the last few years where first thing in the morning, we will have a notification from a client who saw inside of a wall an unforeseen condition. or inside of their attic, they saw that we photographed that there was no insulation where we all thought there was insulation or whatever. And they say, looks like we have a change order coming. Like, I see that there's a bunch of rot behind that wall, that, there's going to be a change order. I didn't have to say anything. Like, they understand that they looked at the photo and there's something has to be fixed that wasn't in the bid. And so now, instead of them, I'm on the roof hiding information from them, trying to make it look like, it's there. It's something it isn't. They've seen the photos. They do their own math.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, great example. And back to the roofing example, rotted decking. As a roofer, you don't know that there's rotted decking until you start the tear off process. As a homeowner, I don't know that there's rotted decking. And if you say, yeah, we had a change order for 16 sheets of plywood, we had to go and replace them. Yeah. And it's like, oh, you did? Oh yeah. Did you see the picture?
How bad were they?
Yeah, exactly. Like, now I'm like, oh, yeah. Now it's like, hey, quick pictures. You can share the gallery link, quick text, like, hey, just want to let you know this is what we ran into when we were tearing off. Yep, don't want that on my roof. You'll get that replaced for it. Yep, no worries. We'll have it replaced by noon. Oh, it's almost like a sigh of relief for thinking, like, because homeowners don't know the complexity or how long it'll take. And a lot of times they're thinking, oh, you got to replace the deck of my roof. Like, that's probably a big undertaking. Now we'll have it done in a few hours. Like, no worries. We'll get those sheets replaced. And so I love that. The other thing you mentioned was you do the walkthrough. You also have the zero punch list company. I love both of those things. And I would even encourage anyone joining us, take those things and kind of put a spin on them. Like, you don't have to be a zero punch list company, but find your thing and say, this is what we are. And maybe that, final walkthrough is the CasaKeepers client pledge, or whatever you call it, some sort of name that you like, hey, this is what we do on every job. We're a zero punch list company. This is what that means. So this is what you can expect from us. At the end of the job, we do this walkthrough. We call it the golden pledge or whatever it is, the walk, and we're going to take you through this. I think those are so valuable, just building that like level of trust, and just kind of, again, being proactive, getting the client to be like, oh, CasaKeepers is great. Like, they know exactly what they're doing. I don't need to worry about a thing. And if I, as a client, am not worrying about a thing, I'm probably not, picking apart little things here and there, saying, I got a little drop of paint here. That's not going to be accepted, and so I love that you guys are doing those things. That's really awesome. Everybody joining us, I would encourage you guys to kind of put your own spin on those things.
And that came out of necessity. Nobody wants to feel like they are your painting company or your roofer, and you don't want to feel like there's somebody standing over your shoulder all the time watching you do your job. Roofing is a great example. If a client walks out during tear off and they see nails on the ground, right? And you haven't already told them, hey, there's going to be nails on the ground after we tear everything off. And then we're going to go through with a magnet and make sure we get all the nails off. And then again, we're going to go through with a magnet. And then before you give me my final check, we're going to go through with a magnet again and make sure that your yard's cleaned up. So when you see those, don't freak out. We have this under control. And so that way, when they get home from work on day 2 and they go, there's nails. Oh, they told me there would be nails. No big deal. They're going to clean it up. Instead of feeling like it's somebody standing over your shoulder while you're trying to type, that's when all your mistakes are made. Encourage you to get in front of that stuff. And once clients realize that they're not supposed to be the expert, they calm down.
Yeah. And the nail piece is a big one. And like you said, paint the picture, be ahead of the game, give them a rough number. Like, it's pretty easy to estimate how many nails, and they're not going to go check the math, but hey, we're going to be pulling shingles off that are going to there's going to be 10,000 nails holding those shingles on your roof. There's going to be some, like you said, we do the magnet on that last walk with you. We're going to magnet while we're walking the property with you and just make sure everything looks great. No worries. Oh, Perfect. Now they're telling their kids like, hey, be careful, there's going to be nails. It's just everything's ahead of the game. So great example there. We did have a question here from Jonah come in while we were chatting. Chad, have you ever utilized the collaboration feature within CompanyCam, either for homeowners or obviously other subcontractors?
Yeah, numerous times. So we share, let's use roofing's actually a really good example. So we have a few roofing trade partners that we use. And so when we take our photos, we'll actually use a gallery for those and share them with the 2 or 3 trade partners who do that kind of roof, and then let them give us their numbers, as a GC based on something that they've now seen. So we get to, leverage that one-time photo taken to get a few bids back. We do that with everything. We share with collaborators for tile installers. So we'll do inside of CompanyCam, we'll take a photo of the tile, and then we'll also use our photo of our 3D rendering of the new shower. We'll have all the measurements on there drawn out so that I can send those out as collaborators to our tile trades, and we can get our bids back. Homeowners, absolutely. Like I said, we let homeowners in at least half of our projects. There's a homeowner involved with an entire timeline link. And one thing we didn't cover earlier, Michael, on letting homeowners in, is I had to train our team. I'm thankful that they're very protective of our brand and our process. And it's natural to not take photos of your misses, photos of mistakes or material that showed up broken or, whatever. Sometimes you just miss the mark. Like we hang a door and you can't get the reveal right. So you have photos of a messed up reveal. Photograph those things. Like we did make a mistake, and then we QC'd it, and then we fixed it, and here's the replacement, and it's done. So we do all that. Broken material. We had to pull out a floor for a tile installer who just did a terrible job. We documented the whole thing, photos every day, photos of the photos of the terrible floor, photos of the new one. And it's been one of our best performing Facebook posts to say that sometimes things don't go right. And the client thought it was hilarious that, no stress on them. The floor got ripped out. We did a new one with a new installer, but been great for us.
Absolutely. So, and I'll take that just from the CompanyCam perspective a little bit as well for you, Jonah. We definitely have contractors that use collaboration with the homeowners, and actually add them as a collaborator to a project. That's something we as a company are looking at. How can we make that experience even better for the homeowner, to almost differentiate I'm collaborating with a subcontractor of some kind. I love your idea of how you get bids from your subs using CompanyCam gallery links. That's awesome. But we want to differentiate, is this a subcontractor that's collaborating with you on the project, or is this a homeowner? Because there's obviously a vastly different, reason for having them in said project and looking at said project. I do see Christian dropped in the chat there. If you have any questions while you're with us on collaborators and how you can leverage collaborators within CompanyCam, that link is right there. Kind of to tie this all together, we talked at the very beginning, like what documentation was. I kind of posed that, grumpy contractor question of Chad. My guys just aren't going to do it. And I think we, got some really good reasons, ideas on how do we get that buy-in. When you think about CasaKeepers at the highest level, I'm sure got your core values and the things that are your true north for your company. I don't know this to be fact, but I would guess documentation, when you break it down to why you're documenting at the high level, aligns very closely with a lot of your core values that you guys have at CasaKeepers. Would that be a true assumption that, some of the things that some of the reasons we're documenting are because we want to build this communication and we want to build this trust with our clients?
I believe it's certainly a piece of the puzzle too. So we actually just defined our core values in the last, first quarter of this year, as we took a few months as a team and went through kind of what I said when we first started, and then when we actually, put on the ground and nailed them all down so that we could each, have copies. So it's kind of an overarching thing. Our our core company values, and this isn't what they say, but what they mean altogether, is doing the right thing is always the right thing. And being able to document. People don't always hear the same thing when the same thing is said, right? So if you're my client and I'm talking about just redoing your floor, and what you hear is floor, baseboard trim, touch up the paint around the walls, change the jamb legs that are too short, make them longer so the new floor touches. And I haven't documented the fact that, man, we were just talking about floors. Like there's just a contract and a specified scope of work for floors. And then you think, well, I've tried to get something over on you. And you extrapolate that into all these different areas where just having clear documentation. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is when it's going to be done. This is how much it costs. Just keeps us on the same side of a problem with a client instead of being across a table. We don't want to be adversarial with anybody. So that is just part of our ethos, is we do the right thing and be excellent in what we do. And for us to be excellent, it means creating an environment where the client understands that we're here to take care of them, not take advantage of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, doing the right thing and thinking about how does that play a role into, or how does documentation play a role into that? And you've got, like you said, clear communication. You've got, I would assume, you don't want to be adversarial. So the lower the stress that is for both the, carpenters that are on site and your client, the better. Like, hey, let's keep things at a low stress. Like we're doing something that, isn't necessarily a must have a lot of time. This is like we've been saving for a while, and this is something we're really excited about doing, and keeping that excitement high, making sure that the job site's clean and taken well care of. I just think that there's so many things that when you think about doing a really good job of documenting, that just kind of fit all of these, high level core values for companies. So that's really great. Kind of last thing before we either kick it over to some questions. So if you have questions, I'm going to give you a few more minutes to get those questions in. At the high level, Chad, do you have any without documentation stories or anything like that to just send us off into this, because obviously we know it's important, but kind of that really drive it home how documentation has been so valuable for your company?
As somebody, I have a ton. The thing is that you only realize how much you need it later. And so I have a bunch of those stories where a client notices, as you alluded to this earlier, they notice that there's a dent in their $5,000 entry door a week after we're done. And you scroll back through those photos, you say, oh, that dent was there on day 2. Here's a photo of it where it existed the day that we taped off that floor. Oh, I think just documenting that part of the process. It wasn't even necessarily something that was meant to be that day. We weren't taking CYA photos necessarily. It just happened to be floor protection day. And so that was in there. We've had, I think I shared this earlier, is that we had a client who we did a remodel for, and part of their remodel was ducting a dryer vent. So we ducted a dryer vent, sent it out right behind, put it over the eave. It was all fine. We get a call back a year later. Client says, I'm getting condensation inside of my house. Well, I have photos of the day it was installed, where it went, how it terminated. That whole process was in photos. And it turns out that in the interim, they'd had somebody move it somewhere else, and it came loose. And they were, in this case, trying to get one over on us by having us fix an error they had made. And we're able to say, hey, here's the photo of the day we left, and this is the way that we left it. Glad to help you create that, fix that problem. It'll be X number of dollars. That is huge for just, you never have to worry. I think one of the other things I would say, if you're if you're still on the tools, so, thank God we've gotten to a point where I'm not out there on the tools. We have team members who, they don't want to be second guessed by a client or by our sales and design team. And by just photographing and keeping a record of what happened, we do daily logs and we do our daily photos. When the questions do come up, we just scroll back through. The story is told. in what happened that day? Did we do the right blocking so that the grab bar in the shower is in the right place? The question isn't, hey, Michael, did you forget to do the blocking behind the shower so the grab bar is in its right place? It is, oh, that's documented on day 17. Here it is.
Yep, absolutely. I love the line. I didn't exactly get the quote word for word, but basically you don't know that you need the documentation until you actually need it. And I think, building that up, whether that's with the clients, I mean, we could go down so many rabbit holes with that. You think about this from a safety perspective, and it's like, are we documenting safety procedures on a daily basis on our job sites? So that way, when OSHA does come calling, we can say, hey, look at this. We do depending on what trade you're in, but we do a toolbox talk every morning with potential job site safety hazards. We do multiple checks throughout the day to make sure we're tied off or we have proper PPE or whatever it is. Like, we do all of this on every job, every day. It's part of our culture. If you caught us not doing that, that's employee negligence, because we have thousands of jobs showing that we do this and we teach this and we train to this. So that's a rabbit hole. We could go down all sorts of them. Your example
Sure.
of the homeowner trying to pull one over, there's two types of situations that are going to arise. Either the homeowner is maliciously trying to pull something over on you, or they genuinely don't know that you didn't cause it or that you did cause it. And in their brain, well, Chad, you guys, I think, were the last ones here, so this
Right.
probably is something you did. And just being able to like paint that picture, you were talking about painting the picture kind of internally, but that same scenario can apply externally, where it doesn't have to be adversarial and say, no, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, you're completely wrong. We didn't do that. Paint the picture for them and show like, hey, this is probably what happened. Did you have someone else in here? I don't think so. Oh yeah, we did. We had a dryer vent company come out and clean. Maybe that did something or whatever it is. So I think those are really great things to kind of leave us with. We don't have any questions, so you got the clock's ticking. I'm going to thank Chad for coming, and Chad, any last last minute walk off statements or thoughts that you have? Otherwise, really appreciate you joining us today. I think there's been a lot of great content.
Thanks, Michael. I think the last thing I would say is the same thing I try and remember in the construction groups I'm a part of and mentorship groups and things like that, is the thing about being in our industry right now, and I would tell this regardless of what your specific trade is that we should be getting better and better because we're getting fewer and fewer, and we should be making more and more. And if we take off the hat that says we're just the knuckle dragging laborers and we're just the ones who build the bridges and we let the smart people do the rest of it, we're going to miss out on the future. And the future is that we're something like 3 million trade persons short of what's needed today to do the work under contract today. So if you're in some sort of physical home service trade, some industry where you're using your hands, you are, essentially the pretty girl at the prison prom right now. You should be very popular and getting better at what you do.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Appreciate everybody jumping in with us today. Again, Chad, great information. Really appreciate you. I don't remember when it was, Chad, but you were on a webinar and we were talking job tread, and we got job tread through the door really quickly. So just know that like
Fantastic.
whether you join us with as a guest on the webinar or you're in the audience, we do appreciate hearing from our customers, and we take what you have to say very seriously. So much appreciation to you joining us today. All of those that joined in and watched, appreciate you as well. And we will see you later this month with another webinar.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, guys.